All right, Congressman Tom Suozzi, welcome to Life
Th-
Before the Virus.
Thank you, Sky. Life before the virus. I remember that, I think.
So tell us what you've been up to. I know you're very busy being a Congress member and you're in Washington and you're on Long Island. So tell us what you've been up to recently since this COVID pandemic.
Well, I'm in a lot of different directions, obviously, busy like everybody else trying to deal with things. Obviously, everybody's so anxious about their health. It's so much better now than it was a month ago, obviously. But people are still worried, and people are mourning people that they know that have passed away. My father-in-law passed away a month ago. He was 92 years old. He got the coronavirus and died within a day and a half, actually, from when he was diagnosed. And my mother-in-law got it, but thank God she has no symptoms and she's okay. And then people are just worried about their finances. People are just so anxious, whether they're an employee who lost their job or they're a business who's anxious to get reopened. But so I'm working every single day to try and address those things. And I can tell you about the different things that I'm doing. Would you like me to go through that, or?
I would love for you to go through that. I know you were the mayor of Glen Cove, you were the Nassau County executive, and now you're in Congress. So you have your hands in a lot of different pots and you have the experience with all these different communities. So yes, tell us how you're able to help your community in your role.
So there's so many different parts. I mean, there's the big piece is Washington, D.C., trying to pass legislation to bring money back to New York State, bring back money back to our New York hospitals, bring money back to our towns and villages and our frontline workers and for testing. And so legislation in Washington, D.C. that everybody reads about is a big focus. And we're always doing Zoom calls with the Democratic Caucus and with the Ways and Means Committee and with the Problem Solvers Caucus and with the experts on different topics. So Washington is all a big piece of my life. Another big piece is locally trying to deal with people's problems that they're having, trying to get their unemployment insurance or trying to help them get their PPP loan or trying to help people who are trapped overseas being brought back to the United States of America. So many different problems that people are facing that they're looking for help from their congressman to help them navigate the bureaucracy, to get help from the federal government or from the state to help them. There's stimulus checks, whatever it may be. Then there's a whole nother world of, out in the community trying to help with delivering food to people or delivering masks and gloves. And people call me and say, hey, I'd like to help. I say, hey, can you do this? And I bring them out to meet them, to bring them to the hospital or bring them to the food pantry and try and connect people in that way. And then on top of that all, I've got a primary on June 23rd. It's hard to do politics in this environment, but despite that, there's a primary on June 23rd. And I've got people running against me and I've got to get people to vote for me. So it's focusing on how to do a campaign, but do so respectfully, considering it's in the middle of the coronavirus. And then finally, like everybody else, my family. I'm home with my wife, Helene, and our 3 kids. And Caroline's 25 and she's working from home. Her job is in Manhattan, her apartment's in Manhattan. But we have to argue who gets the office to do the Zoom calls at particular times of the day. And our son Joe is supposed to graduate from college on Monday, and he didn't get to do his graduation like so many different families didn't get to celebrate graduations or different family rites of passage. Then Michael's a junior in high school, and he's working hard every day, taking classes and doing tests. He's taking a test right now, an AP exam right now.
Wow.
And there's just so much going on. He broke his ankle, and then now his knee's in trouble, and he's got to do some operation on his knee. He's got rehab, so just a lot going on all the time. So that's like everybody else. We're all getting through this together. And I'm lucky that I'm got the great honor of serving as a member of Congress to try and actually help address these problems.
And you've been very good about being bipartisan and working with your colleagues across the aisle and doing a lot for Long Island. And I'd love to hear about the Problem Solvers Caucus and what you've been doing with the Long Island delegation to make sure that we get the funding and the resources that we need.
So I'm the vice chair of a group called the Problem Solvers. It's 25 Democrats and 25 Republicans. We meet every week. We have Zoom calls every week now, several times a week, to figure out how we can work together to get over the partisanship and try and actually solve the problems we face in our country. And on Long Island, I don't always get along with Pete King and Lee Zeldin, but Pete King, Lee Zeldin, myself, Kathleen Rice, Greg Meeks have been 100% unified, working together to try and bring money back to the state of New York and to Long Island and to Queens. And I got a letter signed by every Democrat and every Republican in New York State and New Jersey to set up a special fund that would be distributed to states based upon the rate of infection. Because I represent 3 of the 5 hardest hit counties in America. New York State's the epicenter of this problem. It can't be, which happened in the beginning of this process, that Texas got more money for their hospitals than New York got for our hospitals, even though they had 2.5% of the cases, we had 38% of the cases. So we had to set up a special fund. We advocated for it, we got it. A special fund, I worked with Chuck Schumer, that money would be given based upon the rate of infection. New York got $4 billion of that $10 billion. That helped our hospitals incredibly. Now we need to do the same thing for our state, which is the bill the Democrats voted on last Friday. If we get the Republicans to support us, we'll get New York State and our schools and our nurses and our police and our firefighters and all of our public employees and people on the front lines, get us out of the woods financially during this difficult time. So that's only happening when you work bipartisan, building support. Because now that we need to pass it in the Republican Senate with Mitch McConnell, who's no fan of New York, we're going to need Republican governors, Republican mayors, Republican county executives, Republican members of Congress pushing him over the finish line to work together with us.
I know it's a very important concept, bipartisanship, because that's the key to working together and to solving problems.
Well, the reason it's so hard is because, you know, I've got a primary, for example, okay? I've got a primary on June 23rd. And people from my left will run against me saying, oh, Tom Suozzi's working with Republicans. That's terrible. We got to get rid of him. He's talking to the Republicans too much. And the Republicans, the same thing happens to them when they have primaries. You know, if people meet in the middle, sometimes the base of your party says, oh, what are you doing meeting in the middle? You should be fighting for it all our way. Well, they don't get anything done, and all anybody does is fight with each other. Now I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat all my life. I've got democratic values. I'm never going to compromise my values. But that doesn't mean I can't work with people to try and find common ground, get people of goodwill to try and find common ground. Am I going to get 100% of what I want? No. But you're not going to get it by being just all one way either. By working together, if you can get 80% of what you want, you're a long way home. And we can find much more agreement if we get out of this whole space of fear and anger and partisanship and work more on common good and goodwill.
And let's talk about gun violence for a moment. I know that that was something that you were really focused on before COVID. And I know that gun sales increased across the country and on Long Island right when this pandemic hit. So can you tell us what's going on that front now?
Well, you know, this is a long-standing problem in America. Ronald Reagan got shot in the 80s, and Carolyn McCarthy's husband got killed on the Long Island Railroad 25, 26, 27 years ago. And then we've had all these mass shootings over the years, you know, from Columbine and Sandy Hook. And of course, down in Parkland in Florida, we've got Linda Beagle Schulman on Long Island, whose son was murdered while trying to protect kids at the school in Parkland. And so this is a major issue. I've been endorsed by all the different gun advocacy group, gun violence prevention groups, the Brady Campaign. I'm a citizen, a candidate of distinction with Moms Demand Action and Everytown USA, and I'll probably get endorsed by the Giffords Group. And this is very important to me, and I work on it a lot. This is a good example of the partisanship I was talking about. 90% of Americans support background checks on guns, okay? Forget about the whole stuff of taking away your guns. 90% of Americans support background checks in order to get a gun. If you're a criminal, if you're an alcoholic, if you're have a mental health problem, if you're a domestic violence person, you know, you should not be able to get a gun. Or you're on suicide watch, you should not be able to get a gun. So everybody says, yeah, you should do a background check. 90% of Americans. The Republicans won't support the bill. Now, we got some Republicans, Pete King on Long Island supports it, but most Republicans in America will not support that bill, even though 90% of Americans support background checks. Why? Because so few people vote in the primaries. And the people that vote in the primaries in the Republican Party are often extreme to the far right. And they're the ones who show up in the primaries. And people have said to me, Tom, you know, Republicans, people I know, people I get along with in Washington, D.C., Tom, you know, you probably should do background checks, but if I vote for that, I'll lose the primary. Because less than 15% of the people vote in the primaries. It goes for the Democratic primaries as well. It's the biggest problem in the country. So few people vote in the primaries. And the people that do vote in the primaries are often way out at the edges, a lot of them. And people are afraid, candidates are afraid of alienating that base. Republicans are terrified. Not all Republicans are like that. A lot of Republicans here in New York most people in America, Republicans included, would support background checks. But the far right base controls a lot of the votes because they're the ones who vote in the primary, and they're against background checks. So that's what the problem with politics in America today. If everybody voted in the primaries and in the general elections, you'd see a lot more people working together. Because most people, when you talk to them, they say, can't you guys just work together, get something done and solve the problem? I'm sick of everybody bickering with each other. That's what most normal people say. But those most normal people don't show up and vote in primaries. And they don't show up even in the general election. So it's got to stop being cocktail party talk and talk at a barbecue and, you know, whoa, everybody's so terrible. We wish somebody would do something. You got to vote. Democracy in America only works if people vote.
Right. And that brings us to your primary. On June 23rd is the New York State primary election. And it's going to be maybe a little confusing this year with everyone at home. Are the polls open? You're getting an absentee ballot. You don't get the ballot in the mail. You have to get the application to mail away for an absentee ballot in the mail. So what are some tips or your outlook on this year's primary election?
So most people in Nassau County have received, I represent the North Shore of Suffolk, Queens, and Nassau. Suffolk, Nassau, and Queens. Most people in Nassau have received their absentee ballot application already from the Board of Elections. Please fill it out. You can check temporary illness. In the old days, you know, there's very strict rules who could do absentee ballot. Everybody can do an absentee ballot during coronavirus. You know, stay safe and safely vote from home. So check the box temporary illness. Make sure you sign the document. You have a postage paid envelope and send it into the Board of Elections. You'll get your ballot a week or 10 days later, and then vote for me. In Suffolk, they're just starting to send them out now, and in Queens, they'll be sending them out at the end of the week. So we've got all kinds of mailings and stuff that we've done, telling people all the process. You probably can't see it on here, but you know, main thing is everyone will receive an application to vote by mail at their home. When your application to vote by mail arrives, fill out and remember to check the box, temporary illness. Don't forget to sign the application before mailing it in the postage paid envelope no later than June 16th. Next, you will receive a ballot in the mail. Please fill it out. Sign the mailer, sign the smaller envelope before inserting in the larger envelope, postage paid, and you must mail it by June 22nd. Or you can vote at a polling booth. There'll be less polling spots than usual. They're probably going to cut them in half, but there will be polling spots in every community. And now they've just ruled that the presidential primary has to go forward on June 23rd. So there will be Biden versus Sanders and Yang on the ballot in New York as well.
Yeah, so that's the importance of primary elections, which I love what you spoke about. Getting more people to vote in these primaries is very important.
Yes, especially voting for Tom Suozzi, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for all your work and for what you do and for the inspiration you share with everyone. Thank you so much.
Well, Sky, thank you so much for doing this. I hope this is a great success, and I wish you great success in everything you do.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.